but I hope I'm loud and clear. If you have your video on, you could just give me a sign. Thank you, Rudy. Okay, do we have names here already? All right, so I can see John Luquesa joining from Cameroon. John, you're welcome. I can see Gaurav from India. Hello all. Anastasia joining from Kigali, Rwanda. Thank you, Anastasia, for joining us. I can see Lorraine, who's also joining from Kenya, Nairobi. Hi, I'm Lorraine. How's Nairobi? And Ashok is joining us from India. We have Alanya, who is joining us from London. Francisca is joining us from Indonesia. We have Peace. Is this my Peace? Peace joining in from Ghana. We have Adeline joining in from Rwanda. Irene Edem from Ghana. And I can see the diversity. Barak is joining from Ghana. We have Ashi, who's also joining from India. And yeah, I like the fact that some people are putting or dropping their LinkedIn profiles. You could connect with them. I could, yeah, that. Gibby, Kanda, yeah, keep dropping your various your names and where you are joining us from. Lakshita is also joining from India. Amazing, great. So if you see on your screens, you could see the number of workshops you've had so far. And like I said, workshop 1 looked at the foundation of resource mobilization, that is building the case for climate action. Workshop 2 was also look at crafting bankable climate project and proposals. And workshop 3, we will be looking at building and nurturing. Great. So thank you so much for being interactive here in the comments session. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Now we just proceed into today's session, but before that, I'll just touch briefly on some of the things that was discussed, particularly in the just ended workshop. That's the second workshop, I mean. So the major highlight was structure matters, and the presenter highlighted that structures is very important, that we should follow the fundable formula. So it says your proposal should have clear sections, including a problem statement, solution overview, objectives, key activities, and realistic budget. Funders look for clarity, and they also look for alignment and feasibility and impact in that order. Another key thing he highlighted was that you tell your story. So you don't just describe activities. In doing that, you create a compelling narrative that connects your problem statement to your theory of change. And then funders need to see the logic behind how your activities will create a meaningful impact, not just what you plan to do. And then the final takeaway was that avoid the common rejection traps. And our key speaker said that most proposals fail not because of bad ideas, but because of fixable mistakes like unclear problem statements, weak theories of change, or misalignment with funders' priorities. And we should learn these pitfalls to stay out of the no pie. So on today's session, we'll be looking at, we expect our participants to learn how to turn one-time grants into a lasting partnership. So from finding the right donors and making the first contact to keeping them engaged with compelling impact stories that open doors to multi-year support. Having said that, I would quickly call on one of the amazing core teams of this particular workshop to just take us through just a quick opening remarks, and then we'll get back into the real deal. Rudy, Dutta, if you're here, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ernest, and welcome everyone. If you've been here for the last two sessions, you probably know some of the names already, but my name is Rati and I support the Youth for Capacity program at the UN Climate Change Secretariat. Very quickly, we've been learning so much over the last 3 workshops. What we wanted to do was also give you an opportunity to not just be engaged with these 1.5-hour sessions that we have every Tuesday, where we're at our last one, but also go into a little bit of an opportunity to engage with peers and experts on the Youth for Climate platform. Giovanni, if you could help me out with sharing your screen, that'd be fantastic. I have already on the chat dropped the link to this platform. As you can see, it's a wonderful platform where you could just create an account, sign up if you've not already done so. But on the top, you'll see that there's the Climate Catalyst Mentorship Program 2.0 bar right there. That is all information on the mentorship program is on this page. So there are FAQs, groups, everything, when the boot camps are going to take place, the registration, information on certificates, all that you need is on there. As you scroll down, you'll see that we have the Funding Climate Projects from Vision to Action group right there. And as if you could click on About, please, Giovanni. That'll give you information on what's happening on this group, from what the workshop schedules are like to what what's happening on the group in terms of the discussions that are currently live. As you can see, we have 3 discussions live. One is relevant to this session on the donor engagement mirror, so go join that. The other one is on climate funding flops and red flags and a connected chain of opportunities. And then finally, questions that were not picked up during the live session, or you found something interesting and wanted to ask it but did not get the chance to ask it during the live session, and it only came up during reflection. Use the Q&A thread. That's a perfect opportunity for you to drop your questions on any of the workshops, and experts and moderators and other peers will help you out in sort of creating that space and engaging and kind of answering some of your questions. So I highly recommend that you join this group and the relevant discussions and really engage over there. We oftentimes give shout outs to people who not only just participate in the live sessions, but also are part of the discussions. So yeah, that's it from me, but I'll pass it back to Ernest now and we can get right into this session. Thank you so much, Ernest.
Thank you so much, Rudy. That was very apt and very clear and loud. And thank you all for joining in, and thank you those who have been staying with us from the beginning of the these workshop series till now. This wouldn't have been amazing without you. So we zoom into the workshop 3. That is, the objectives for the workshop is to, 1, understand how to find and research donors that support climate projects, learn how to communicate early and professionally with funders, explore strategies to keep donors informed and engaged after funding is secured, to practice how to tell impact stories in a way that will build trusted future funding, from one-time grants to a more flexible or long-term support. So going straight into the Make Kindly project, the Zoom poll. Great. So this is just a question for everyone, and we want you to put your responses in the chat as much so that we read your engagement. What's one word you associate with donor relation? What's that one word you will associate with donor relations? And I'll be reading your responses live on the chat. John Luquesta says connect. Yes, connect. That's a very beautiful way of defining the relationship with donors. Connect. We have Lauren saying clarity. Clarity. Ashok Joseph says consonants. Rita says trust. Trust, very key. We have Francisca saying respect. Eric says shared responsibility. We are having different perspectives here. Hassan says trust. And we have Sadat says impact. Bonjekil, please forgive me if I murdered the name, says accountability. And we have told you, Agbo, saying transparency. I like the fact that the responses coming in are very diverse. And we have Bosiri Potian saying sustainability. I'm sorry if I got the name wrong. And we have Laura saying comfortability. We have Andrea Paul saying transparent. Very, very important. We have Fanoan saying impact. And Miriam says clarity. Angela says learning. Anguela says align. We have Ahmad saying commitment. Isaac is saying continuous, sharing our milestones even beyond funding. Continue sharing your milestones even beyond funding. Great. We have Gaurav saying trust. I think we've seen a couple of trust here. Liwa says believe. There's also one of the band of the believe people. Felix says stay in touch. Mubarak says alliance. Benedict says reliability. Yes, reliability. Jason says reciprocity. I'm really looking forward to some of these things explained in our various presentation. But reciprocity, yes. Ahmad saying accountability. Lakshita saying trust. Gibby says engagement. And we have Francis Maliton saying transparency. Pius saying mission alignment. This is the Pius I know. Hi, Pius, how are you? We have Shanice saying loyalty. Liwa saying creativity. And Dennis saying impact. Impact. That's a very good one. We have Siddharth saying love for the earth. Laura saying collaboration again. 4-day saying impact. Hi, 4-day. We have Mariana saying mutuality and Lydia saying transparency, and Everjoy saying stewardship, and Ashley saying meaningful. I think these are amazing. Thank you so much, Dean. These are amazing insights coming from you all. And I think there is no wrong answer here. Whatever you are saying is super related and they are so true. But of course, I'm not the one to throw more light into it. I know going deep into the various presentations, all of these things will come to bear. And for some of us who do not understand some of these things that are beautiful and beautifully projected here, we may find understanding or get insight into this. So having said this, I'll then zoom into our first, or we will zoom into our first presentation. And this presentation would be on where and how to find the right donors. And this complements just this activity that we just had. And to do us this honors is a very good friend and a brother. His name is George Mangwala, who is African lead of our Common Homes. And just a little bio or something brief about George. George is a seasoned campaigner, movement builder, and network leader with over 13 years of global experience in campaigning, organizing, policy change, and growing movements. Driven by a strong commitment to social change, he specializes in creating unconventional partnerships, informal influencing, and providing advisory to funders and decision-making. George is passionate about engaging diverse audiences to channel resources where it matters the most. Currently, George is African lead at our Common Home, previously campaign director at Purpose. He led the development, resourcing, and execution of impact global campaigns addressing issues such as climate justice, energy access, youth advocacy, election integrity, COVID-19 communications, combating misinformation, and public health equity. His leadership extended to numerous global campaigns, narrative shifts, and advocacy efforts aimed at fostering a more just and equitable world. George is a graduate of the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication, Samro, that I cannot say, and Strathmore Business School. George is also an alumnus of the Fred Coppest and the Communication for Change programs. He currently serves as a board member of Amnesty International Kenya and a partnership advisor to the Africa Center for Health Systems and Gender Justice. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome your facilitator or your speaker for this session, George Manuela. George, over to you.
Thank you, Ernest. Listening to that, I wondered who that was. I don't think that's me. I would have left it as you know, at a campaigner, as that's what I mostly refer myself to. But yeah, definitely tons of experience having worked closely with funders and donors, both from a receiving end and also as a funder and a regranter in the climate space for a number of years. And just generally, you know, having learned lots of information about what funding is, what you know donors are looking for, and the interesting things that we all do. I've also had you know quite a number of us on the call come to me for funding. And so we'll have this conversation from an experience and just you know a conversational point into what we see, what we experience, things we get to hear, how people ask you know for monies or ask for funding to do different projects and initiatives, but also just experience into the kind of people that I have seen being funded, how I have been funded before, and how I also have prioritized maybe funding initiatives that I have had a chance to resource before. Wondering whether I had you know some slides. I wonder whether you could show them. Yeah, it's a quick question on where do you usually find new funding opportunities? Might be interesting to hear. Nice. Could we see some of the results, Ernest? Is it possible? But I have seen in the chat these online sites, funding sites coming up. If yeah, as we are talking to each other and discussing, it'd be good to see and hear some of the funding sites, online funding sites that you find funders from. There's you know, I can see this LinkedIn as nice. That's great. If we can keep it going in the chat, if you have any interesting specific online platforms that you find funders from, you know, let us hear about it. But yeah, generally for me, when I think about funders and the funding space, I heavily approach it from funders are human beings, right? And they are not, funders are not robots, funders are not, you know, aliens, they are human beings like us. And if we put that in mind and know that when I'm looking for funding, I am actually asking this from a human being, whether I am speaking to them directly, whether I am writing to a human being. And this is someone who behaves, acts like us, eats food like we all do. You know, they all have their own challenges, have their own biases, but they are human beings. So if you know you take nothing else from this conversation today, is think about a funder as a human being, and that then helps in building relations with funders. Whether you are doing a cold outreach at the beginning to say, I have seen, you know, interesting call out online and I would want to be part of it, or I have or someone introduces you to them, or just always know that they are human beings and they all think and behave like you do. So that we are not, you know, funders are not different from you. And at some point you definitely will be a funder, right? And then one other thing we hear and question ourselves a lot sometimes is, am I talking to a funder? Am I talking to a donor? Am I building a partner? And who is a partner to you? How do you even describe who a partner is? Am I collaborating? And for me, in the space I have been in, I most commonly now want to build a partnership and a collaboration, so that you do not essentially look at me who has the resource and giving you resource as an exchange. It's not a transaction, right? It's not what is on paper and you send me what's on paper and I send you money. It's about understanding the work you will do, and there's lots of interesting descriptive words: connecting, impact, transparency. All those are words that would describe who you're looking for. And I would just say, yeah, we actually need to start redefining and think about donors and funders as partners and collaborators. I'm walking a journey with you, and I'm not just here to give and run away, right? Even if I give just money and it's a one-off money, resource that I'm giving you to something, it's because it touches, it touches me, it touches the aspects of work that I do. If I am paid to actually just control money, it's still, I have a bias into the kind of resource I give based on who, my founder or the objects of the organization I work for are. And I try to actually also insist and say we bring the fun in it so that we don't end up being machines. And a lot of us now with AI, we run to AI to write proposals and write concepts for us. They most of the time don't turn out to be as effective because they don't speak for me or for you. It's generated. So don't just rely on AI to write your proposals or to write your emails or to write your outreach. And do not mistake me to say that AI is bad. AI is the best thing that has ever happened to us, to this generation, because then it simplifies our work, makes things easy for us. But yeah, it does not, it can help in writing and unifying your language, but you need to actually do this and develop these yourself, write things yourself. If you could move to slide number 3, Ernest. So as I mentioned, finding the right donor isn't just about finding money, which most of the time we all are responding either to calls to proposals or are looking and scouting for funders with money ahead. Like that's what we want. I want money, I want money, I want money. But for me, it's about finding a partner, as I have already said. It's about finding people that are mission aligned with my work, and I am mission aligned with their work, and building a collaboration. So saying, I have a mission. I have my interesting things I want to do. Funder or donor or collaborator X has also the same, they're interested. We are quite aligned. So how do we actually move and how can I move and build this relation together? Am I responding to a call to proposal? Yes, it's a call to proposal. As I respond to it, how do I want to actually build a collaboration beyond that one-off call to proposal? And the best way for me to, over the years and my experience into what has seemed to work for me is the slides, this slide as you see it, the 3 things: knowing the strength you have and the weaknesses you have from the time you're reading a proposal, or from the time you're even starting a cold outreach. What does that actually mean? What is your why? What is your what? What's your how? Have you described that internally? Have you described it yourself with your team before you're out responding to a call to proposal, or before you easily are reaching out to speak to someone to ask for funding? Or if I met you at an event, some of us, have always, we meet at an event, you hear I'm a funder, or I know funders, and the first thing you say, I want funding to go to COP. And I know Richard and I have laughed at this many times. Like, you're going to COP to do what? Or I want funding to go to a big conference, a big platform. To go there and do what? You can't answer. So know the what, know the why, and know the how. Very critical at the beginning. And then identifying who you want to partner with, who would you want to receive resource from. Even before you want to respond to that call for proposal or want to do a cold outreach, you maintain a list of prospects. So in my work, I keep and update a list of prospects every month to say who is new in the funding space, what's changing, who is mission aligned, who have I received resource from, and who would I want to give resource to. The same when I'm subgranting and giving resource as well, I ask the same question, right? Are there organizations that are really doing amazing work that I know? And then I would put them down. Do I know them? Do I not know them? Are there any that I would want to reach out? Are there any that are coming to play now that are new, interesting, exciting? I write them down. So always maintain a prospect list so that you know who is funding in the space, why are they funding, what are their interests, are they aligned to your interests? Is there someone you know from your prospects, or do you need introductions, or do you need to do a cold email to say, hey, I would want to have a conversation about your work, about your mission, about what you are aligned with. And then defining your needs. They are very critical for reaching out to your target and starting to build a relation. So if you don't define your need, you would be out here looking for anyone and everyone. As long as you hear they're a funder, you're running after them, or you're sending emails to say, can we talk? And then we all look at the email and keep quiet and never, would never respond to you. And you ask yourself, why, So internally, in your teams, agree on guidelines on things you want to do. And when in doubt, always ask, ask about a funder, or send, if you're talking to a donor, funder, collaborator, and you want to build a long-term relation, you could just, say, can we have a chat about your work? Here is what I do, and I think we might be aligned. And that specifically, you're not asking for money at that point, right? You're just asking about their priorities, how they fund. And then at this point, with these three things, is always asking and reminding yourself that anyone who is in the funding space, in the donor space, is a human being, and I think I will repeat that a lot because mistakes I also have made is thinking of the, superhuman people who are quite far away from us. So before you even start looking for funders and finding, who are they, where are they at, ask yourself some clarity questions that I always ask myself and I have asked myself over the years is, what kind of funding do I need? What are, the thematic areas of focus that my work is in, and being very specific with yourself. What geographic, focus is my work in, and would the funders have? So some funders fund globally, others fund in very specific regions, others fund local community initiatives, whereas others would fund bigger. And then asking yourself these questions actually really helps in defining who your funder, your donor would be. And then it helps you in crafting how you would want to build a collaboration that leads into a long-term partnership. And then establishing and figuring out what's your expertise, what's your credibility, what do you bring to the table, so that as you're reaching out, as you're talking to someone, as I said, whether it's a cold reach, whether it's an introduction to from someone else, whether it is responding to a call to proposal, your credibility is very critical. So have you established the credibility? Do you have the expertise needed? Do you have, the criteria they're looking for? Then you now are reaching out. And what's the scale of your project? So could be very critical question to know, what is it? Is this a local community initiative? Is it a national initiative? Is it a regional initiative? Or how far and rich does it go? It helps you in now crafting what you say to your prospect list. It helps you in crafting what you say in your proposal when you're responding to proposals. It helps you to ask for introduction. If you ask someone, if you came to ask George, introduce me to funder ABC, I would ask this question so that I would also know what am I telling this funder. And then also know who is in the space, right? What is their interest? And who is in the space means who is funding the space, who are the other players and stakeholders in the space, what are their interests, who are your supporters or competitors. So building a map of stakeholders that is quite vital and critical to you and to your work. If you could move to slide 5, actually 5 would be, yeah, that one, sorry, 5 is ideal. And then beyond one's understanding and knowing, here is what I would want. I know my outreach, I know who they want to target, where my project and how far it can go, what am I now responding to. I'll start building and seeking to build relation. And seeking relation is not money. I am responding to a call to proposal, which has said there's this amount of money to it. Ask for that amount of money, but then seek to build a relation beyond the money. If you are reaching to someone on LinkedIn or on the other online platforms that we know about, don't start by asking money. Start by knowing their work, knowing their interests, knowing the things they are very excited about. And then seek to continuously diversify your list and keeping a pipeline, as I said, so you diversify it every single time, whether you do it every 3 months or every 6 months, it's up to you, but continuously doing that. Collaborating and being movement generous, that cuts across all of us. We all on this call, we join the platform. How do we then build collaboration amongst ourselves? And that way we build more credibility, we build a force that we can, seek resource together, but also just sharing insights. So, the same way Gaio is a good example. Gaio shares, exciting insights and resources across the network. They convene and share with the rest of the movement, and then talk to each other. If you are in country X, you're in Kenya, or you're in India, or you're in Tanzania, talk to people in your country who actually are doing the same or similar work that you are doing. So don't look at yourself as, just don't compete. Talk to each other, because then there's strength that each of you has. And then building trust. And as I say, trust is built in very many ways. It's how your first outreach email sounds like. Are you looking for money, or are you looking for a partnership and a long-term relation? If you are trusted with money, and I know Richard will talk about reporting and all that, but we're trusted with money. How are you actually utilizing this money? Are you utilizing it in the right way? Are you movement generous, that when we invite you to come provide insights about, the initiatives or space you're in, you are willingly doing that and supporting? And building trust also takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience. You have to be, it's something you actually have to be committed to doing, so that someone trusts you with a little, and then with more and more and more as you grow and expand your work. And then finally, for me, if you could move to slide number 6, is just takeaway homes from what we hear, what I see, what I have learned over the years is, strategic partner identification is, do you know exactly what you need and where to look, right? As I say, is it online? Is it through referral? And if you're looking online, what am I actually looking for? And then you vet, ensuring you're aligned with the mission and vision, with the kind of initiatives donors and funders are interested in, and aligned to your mission as well. So don't just jump into asking for a partnership, asking for money because you think there is money, right? Are they aligned? Is their work aligned? Is their mission aligned? And understanding everyone's of what funder expectations are. The calls for proposals are very clear. They always say, here are our parameters, this is what we want. So, take time to actually read through and answer the questions correctly. As I said, avoid just putting the questions on, an AI platform and asking for answers, because you will get a generic answer that then loses trust, but also you lose the funder, you don't get the money or the resource you need. And building relations and gaining insights. So relations are, as I said, if I have given you money, I expect that you also would want to share insights with us. Help us help a funder, or help whoever is funding you to be better, to do better, help them understand the dynamics of the sector you work in, build progress markers, and be able to share those with and interesting and exciting things you hear about the work and about the projects. Share those insights, and that also helps in building relation. That's so that we don't look at you and see you as transactional, or someone who's just only come for us for resource and then you're out, or you come to get money and then you run away and wait for 6 months or 1 year reporting period, and then you're back. You've run out of the money, now you're back to ask. But in between, there was no communication, there was no progress updates. Funders really appreciate progress updates, and it doesn't mean you're sending, a 10-paragraph email. It can be one slide or 2 slides into, here's the progress, here's what we are doing, what we are learning. Here's more partners we are talking to, and we are quite excited to hear and talk to you. That's it from me. But quite excited to keep talking and discussing this together with all of us. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, George. Thank you so much for such an insightful presentation. I believe everybody, to some extent or to a very large extent, have enjoyed this segment as I have. Please, if you have any question, kindly drop it in the chat function. I believe we have a number of questions that we want to ask. If you've not already put yours in the chat, kindly put it in the chat now, because now's the time for Q&A. So if anybody has any question, it will be great to put it in the chat, because we will not be able to let you unmute and speak because of time. So yeah, waiting for your questions. But George, since we're still waiting for the questions, if there's any other thing you want to add, you can add. And once the questions are in, maybe you could respond to them accordingly.
Thanks, Ernest. I see there's just one question maybe that I could start responding to that's on the chat is about
Sure, please
experience, about how you actually a funding journey. It's funding journey is quite specific to each organization, right? And funders have their own interesting funding journeys. Some and right now, actually, not just some, majority of funders now are either we would put out the calls for proposals, or we are unsolicited, where we ask, in the circle. So an organization like Gaio, we would ask them who are exciting youth initiatives that I would want to fund if I had $50,000, right? Or if I had 10,000, who do I give these monies to? And organizations that have credibility, have built credibility, have built expertise, always have very interesting initiatives, organizations to fund. And so, funding journey would be, if it's a call for proposal, we quickly review the proposals. Some of them, we definitely put them on existing platforms that just sieve and tell you whether the proposals you've received are mission aligned. Have they been written, using AI? Are the projects feasible? Because then that's the first point of, kick them out before I can actually start reviewing. And then if I received 1,000 of them, I would maybe remain with 400 proposals now. Find the second criteria into who else do I talk to, to read through and tell me, does it make sense? There's a line. And then you remain with a very small, set of proposals, and then you can dig deeper. They're interesting. And most of the time, we all know we are not 100% when we are writing, right? So we go back with questions, can you define further? Can I understand better? Lots of funders now are even co-creating these proposals. Once we know the idea is really interesting, the idea is workable, it's already working, we want to co-create it with you and understand better. So, a funding journey really depends with the specific funder you're talking to. Yeah.
Thank you so much, George. There are quite a number of questions here coming through. This one is coming from Sida Utam. He says, "Can you please walk us through your fundraising processes?" Maybe you could do that briefly.
My fundraising process, for me personally now, it's heavily relation. I do not easily respond to calls for proposals or unsolicited. I because I have built relations with the network, and if it's not the specific funder, with someone who knows the funders, they would always tell you, here is an exciting, opportunity. It fits the work you're doing. Talk to us, And two is also, very focusing on, as I said, building a partnership, building a relation. I just reach out and say, can we have a chat? Can I understand what your funding priorities are for this year or for the next 5 years? How can I, how can my organization or how can the work we do be very, aligned and helpful in realizing your goals as a funder? How can we, support with insights, as a thought leader? Then we end up raising money. So I never approach, funding from there is money, I want to go for money. It's about, the bigger picture and really learning and mission aligning and building a relation before then money is actually offered most of the time. They say, we have this pool and an opportunity for you. We think it might be interesting to send us a concept. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, George. We have another question. We have quite a number of them. Please kindly keep them very brief for me, George. So Liwa Martin is also coming with another question. He's asking, or she is asking, how can we show the impact of their support in a way that resonates with them? So what this person is asking is, how does those who have funded us, how do they see, or how do we present the impact in a way that will resonate with them?
This is, before you get any resource from a funder, before they tell you, we like you, we want to work with you, they already have seen a mission, like you're aligned, right? They believe in your work. And you should also have known what their end goal, like what are they trying to achieve with a fund? Because if I was putting out a fund today, I would already communicate and say what it is about. So for your impact, you need to really align your impact with what the funder goals are. These, as I say, are either in the proposals, and we call for proposals. They're either in the terms of reference for these grants. If you're not very certain, ask whoever is funding. Just ask, what is it? What is the impact? What kind of impact do you want to miss? How would you want me to report? Because majority of us wait for the end of 12 months for you to want to report, or 6 months period. But reporting can be, I went to the office of the minister and we discussed something interesting. We're starting process on, shifting a narrative or a policy that is interesting, because stuck and stacking it together, right? And say, here is what I am seeing, because then you report over a period of time. I mean, regularly, rather than wait for 12 months for you to say we reached, or we had 1,000 people coming to a conference, and so what, right?
All right, thank you very much, George. I think I would end the Q&A session here. We're going to have an uninterrupted session with our various funders in the breakout rooms coming in the next couple of segments, and we'll have the opportunity to ask them as many questions as we want, uninterrupted, so you could go all out and bombard George with all your questions, and I believe he has most of your answers. Thank you very much, George, for such an amazing presentation, and thank you for your responses too. All right, so going on, we will zoom into our next set of presentation, and this will be done by no other than my boss. He will be talking about, his presentation would basically revolve around reading between the donor lines and then pre-funding. Yes, reading between the donor lines and then pre-funding engagement. So in no particular order, please help me welcome Richard Mate. Just something brief about Richard. Richard is the youth climate leader with over 7 years worth of experience in the space. He's coordinated a lot of projects. He has been the frontier of a lot of climate projects across the country and across the region. One of the notable projects he pioneered and initiated was the youth negotiator training, which is currently the African Youth Negotiator Program, which is all over the continent. And Richard is currently the ED, which is the Executive Director of the Green Africa Youth Organization. Richard, please, if you are here, over to you.
All right, thank you, Ernest, and thank you, George, for that insightful presentation. I think, in fact, even if I don't share anything, you've already touched on most of the things that are very important to share. But I'm very excited to be here to share with you on strategic donor reporting and relationship building, and as well as maintaining those relationships that we have with funders. And I mean, when it comes to fundraising or and donor management, a lot really goes into it. And it's very important that we are able to understand certain things to help us in terms of our fundraising. And it's very important before we zoom in on we go into the presentation. I'll just like to touch on one thing which George mentioned, which is also a precursor to my presentation, about the fact that um, donor engagement shouldn't be transactional. A lot of us are very much interested in getting the money. I need 5K, I need 10K USD to do my project and all that. And that makes us go to funders, and then we are just asking, okay, I need 10,000 to do my project, and that's it. But I mean, a strategic donor engagement is not more about asking or making your request for financial support. It goes way beyond that. It's supposed to be transformational, not just about asking money so that you produce a report to show that you've spent the money well and delivered on the project very well, but also that the donor becomes part of your journey as an organization and as the work that you do, investing in the mission of your organization and what you're doing, how it aligns to what they are doing, so that you both create not just a project, but also a learning experience for yourself. So it's more about, or it should be, not just about money, but about how you co-create impact together. Because at the end of the day, you are asking for money to do a project that will achieve certain results and have certain impact. The donor is also interested in giving money to an organization to carry out certain activities who achieve certain results and have certain impacts. So our donor engagements should be more transformational, where we look at how we align together to achieve these outcomes, how we build trust, and then we have a shared purpose. I mean, over the period of engagements that we have in terms of creating the project, implementing it together, and all that. And by so doing, we have a relationship that really evolves, that really grows, and leads to much deeper support that we want to have with our donors or our funders. So with this, I mean, I would like to do a poll. So can we move the slides to the Zoom poll? And let's take the poll and get an understanding of whether we've ever updated a donor mid project before or not. So I can see we're having very interesting responses from this. And I mean, this is very, very important because I mean, a lot of us, as we mentioned, we're just looking for the money. Where can we get the money to carry out what we want to do? Yeah. So, all right. We're getting very, very interesting responses. Yes, and basically, I mean, to speak to the responses that we're having, a lot of us are admitting that we don't do mid-project reporting. And I think this was one of the things that George highlighted in concluding his presentation about having to wait till end of project year before we come and report and say we've done this, we engage with this, and we engage with that, and we did that. But it's very important that during the life cycle of the project activity, you keep the donor informed in whatever is happening, whatever you are doing. If there are new updates or new directions that are coming out from the project, we are able to update them. Yeah. So let's zoom in. A lot of us have mentioned or have touched on the fact that we don't do mid-project reporting, and that means that we don't communicate a lot to our donor. We just take the money, we focus on doing the project, and then at the end we come on and say, okay, we are done with the project, this is the reporting and all that. So can we move the slides to the next presentation? Yeah. So I just want to start by highlighting the importance of doing proper reporting. And some of the things that I've mentioned earlier on, we'll do a deep dive into them to be able to understand the things that we are talking about and the relevance of it in terms of our work that we do and our engagement with funders and donors. So when reporting to a donor, it's very, very important that you take into consideration some key things that can help you to build the relationship or enhance the relationship that you have with this donor for which you've received this funding, and also being able to deepen the relationship or enhancing the relationship for deeper funding. And it's important to note that the deeper the relationship you are able to build with the funder, the more you're open to funding, or even you're open to a wider network of funders that your donor has, because the donors have a network of funders who can support different things. So for example, maybe you're working with donor A that is giving you a project funding for your climate project, and you have, say, a project on agri, you can have your donor connect you to another donor that can help you to, undertake your agri project. And that would only happen when you're able to deepen your donor relationship. So it's important for us to demonstrate measurable impacts when we are reporting to our donor. And this will mean by showing evidence of what has been done that aligns to the donor's vision. So as I mentioned earlier, a donor gives you money to undertake an activity, and whatever money is given to you or funds are given to you are in line with what the donor, the vision of the donor, or what the donor has in mind or wants to achieve. So you ensure that you're able to demonstrate the impact of your work through, evidence-based reporting to be able to meet the vision that the donor is having. It's also key to understand that, being transparent and accountable in your reporting is very, very important, as it helps to build credibility for you. And this will help the donor to be able to understand what you have done, what are the lessons that you've learned, what were your challenges, what were your weaknesses. Also helps the donor to be able to understand where the gaps are in terms of your capacity. And then they can even come in to say, okay, how do I support you to be able to deliver on the project, to be able to achieve the outcomes or the desirable outcomes that you've set for yourself for this project. So it's also important to also note that proper reporting helps you to build trust. you need your donor to be able to trust you so much to be able to commit more resources to you. So when you're able to report properly, providing, a very transparent and being accountable in your expenditure, providing the metrics and the evidence of the work that you have done, that will help in building this trust. And it will also help you when you report properly to be able to have data that can help you to make very strategic decisions and also help you to align with what the donor is looking out for. As I mentioned, and as has been said earlier on, every donor has what they are looking to achieve. And so when you're able to report properly, it helps the donor to also make certain informed decisions that can enable them to give you more funding and also to help you in the work that you do. The work that you have or the relationship that you build with the donor must transcend beyond funding. They're giving you money, as I mentioned and has been mentioned earlier on. So doing the proper reporting helps the donor to be able to understand your work much better and to be able to understand or know how best they can support you to bring impact to scale on the work that you're doing. Next slide. Yeah. So when reporting, it's very important that you know or you are able to report in a way that brings more meaning and more resonance with the funder. And that has to that is to say you must report in a way that tells the donor what is actually happening on the ground, in the sense that before your intervention, this was the case, or this was the scenario, this is what your intervention has done. This is what it has achieved. This is the transformation that has happened after the intervention was put in place. So it's good that you collect evidence of what changes has happened, and then you communicate these changes to your donor, because this may mean a lot and may mean different things for the donor. One of the things that it may mean is that, do I commit more resources to this kind of work, or do I decrease the resources committed to this and rather focus on something else? Because maybe your reporting has indicated something that has drawn the donor's attention that requires that they also look into that. So it's very important that you are able to gather as much evidence and communicate these changes to your donor. Also, show how your beneficiaries are creating change. A lot of times we report on the number of beneficiaries that have been engaged or who these beneficiaries are, but we often don't communicate on how the beneficiaries of your intervention have carried the lessons or the knowledge of, or what they have acquired from the intervention or the project to create something for themselves. And these are very, very important stories that donors want to hear. And that is the shift that we have to create whenever we are reporting to our donor. Not just about the fact that we were given X amount to do XYZ. We've done XYZ. We engage with these farmer groups. We engage with that stakeholder and this stakeholder and that, and then it ends there. But how has the stakeholder engagement that you've had with this particular group transformed them? So it's very important that you communicate this. You also have to be able to show evidence, as I mentioned earlier on. So using pictures, using videos, if it involves maps, you can put in these maps of these areas to say this is the geographic area, these are the changes that have happened. Sorry, and you can even do a before and after, so that you're able to tell the story of how your intervention has transformed the geographic area or has changed the narrative. So this is very important when you are reporting to the donor. You must be able to change the reporting style of just highlighting what was done, what happened, to what changes. Tell the story of the beneficiaries, how the intervention that you've come up with or you've implemented has changed their lives. In your report, give room for the beneficiaries to tell their stories. Communicate the stories of the beneficiaries in your report. It's very, very, it makes your report very transformational and helps the donor to properly align and to be part of the success story. Next slide. Yeah, so this is very important. When we are reporting, it's very essential to go beyond just the KPIs. So, for example, you are doing a tree planting activity or a mangrove restoration activity or project, and then you have as your KPIs the number of mangroves that you've planted or you've restored. So just mentioning that you have 500 trees planted is not just enough. But how do you communicate the shift in the narrative in terms of after planting these 500 trees, what happened? This is something that we miss. So being able to use stories to illustrate the changes that have happened. Yes, of course, these KPIs are very important to tell so that we know what was done or what happened or what were the changes that happened. But how do you use these KPIs to tell the stories that have happened around the KPI? So yes, 500 trees were planted, but what was the results? Those who planted the trees, did they do something more beyond, or was there something that significantly changed beyond just the trees that were planted? That is very important to communicate. It's also important, as I mentioned, to use your the quotes from the beneficiaries. What are their stories? Put them there and then share them. Also, it's important to show your learning journeys when you're reporting to your donor as well. Let's go to the next slide. So beyond reporting and sharing what your project achieved and the successes chalked and all that, how do you build the relationship that you have with your donor and then you maintain this relationship? And there are 4 things that I want to highlight that can be very beneficial for you in maintaining your donor relationship. One is to share updates. Regular updates, could be weekly updates, monthly update, quarterly update, just to maintain the engagement and the relationship that you have started with the donor. Don't wait till the end of the project to come and report on and say this and that, but give the project give the donor regular updates. Even when new things pop up as you are implementing the project, let the donor know, okay, this state organization has expressed interest in the project and they want to join along the line. Just let the donor know. That constant communication would help have you in mind and in heart of the donor all the time. Finding or getting feedback from the donor is important. So you've shared your quarterly report or your end of year report for year one. Find out from the donor, are they okay with the report? Is there something new that they want to see different in the next report that will come to them? Try to get the donor feedback. Don't only focus on, I'm supposed to submit reports, I've done it. That is it. I've gone back to doing what I'm doing. But go beyond that and be interested in getting feedback from the donor, not feedback in terms of the feedback they provide on the report you have shared alone, but to know if there's something new that you want them, they want you to add on, or is something that they are looking for that has not been highlighted in the report. You'll find out. It's very, very important. It helps you to engage with the donor. It's also important to also invite the donor to be part of your activities. So maybe if you're having a launch of something as part of the project, invite the donor to be part of the launch, give them a role, maybe delivering the keynote address or something, or providing a solidarity message. It's important to keep the donor involved in the activity. There may be cases where a donor may say, no, I don't want to be part of the project, just go and do it and come back. That is okay, but also it's important to keep on updating them, and then that should be okay. Also recognize your donor in your activities, in your reporting. So if you are making a social media post, reference your donor or acknowledge your donor. If you are doing annual reports or having media engagement or even newsletters, acknowledge them in the post. In all that you do. Some donors may not want to be referenced or may not like that. Find out from them if they are okay with they being referenced in your post and all that. If they are okay with it, you do it. It helps to build and strengthen the relationship. Next slide. Yeah, so quickly want to touch on some things that are not helpful in maintaining or in building donor relationship. And one of the key things is lack of donor responsiveness. And this has to do with the fact that a donor will send you an email and it will take a week or 2 weeks or even a month to respond to the emails. It doesn't build the relationship. It rather creates a lot of doubt in the minds of the donor. Sorry. So once you receive an email from the donor, don't delay in responding. If the donor is even requesting for some documentation or something that you don't have at the moment, respond to let the donor know that, oh, I acknowledge receipt of your email. I've seen your requests and I'm working on it to provide you those documents by close of day or end of week or whichever timeline that is needed. And then the donor knows that, okay, you have seen my mail and you are working on the thing. So it's very important. Also, reaching out to donors for funding only is something that you shouldn't do. Don't look at the donor, as George mentioned, they are human beings. Don't look at them as objects that you are just going to take from another. Try to build a cordial relationship with them. Get to understand them, get to understand what they need, what they want, how they think, and what their expectations are, and build friendship with them, build relationship, a cordial relationship with them. Donor engagement is not just about money. Over-promising and under-delivering. Don't promise too much in an attempt of letting the donor know that, yes, you can do it. Stay within what you can do or your capacity. And under-delivering too is not good. You promise that you can do X, Y, Z, stick to it and do X, Y, Z. If you do X and leave Y and say, oh, I earlier on said I can do X, Y, Z, but I can only do X and I can't do Y and Z. It destroys the donor relationship. It destroys the trust that is being built. So you have to be conscious of that. Don't try to say too much to impress, and you don't have to underdeliver. So you know your capacity and work within your capacity. Avoiding generic responses and vague reporting. Most of our reports are not specifics. They are, we end up producing very general reports. Oh, we did an advocacy campaign, or we did a number of campaigns. What do you mean by you did a number of campaigns? Specify the number of campaigns that you did. We did 2 campaigns in 3 communities. Don't say we did campaigns in local communities in Accra or in Ghana. No, these are very vague. These are too generic. Be very specific, very articulate, very precise on the things that were done and report on that. Non-acknowledgement of donor contributions is also something that you have to note. As I mentioned earlier on, you always have to acknowledge your donor in your communication work, most especially. And then also ignoring donor reporting deadlines and guidelines. You have to be very mindful of that. When the deadline is 28th, you make sure you deliver on the 28th. If it has to extend, you alert the donor on time that you have to extend, and then that extension will be granted you. Next slide. So this is the things that I want you to know in concluding the presentation. Please move on to the next slide. So we are looking at how to maintain or sustain long-term donor relationship. It's very important to understand that securing a sustained funding or partnership is not just about delivering on the project, but it's about providing value to your donors, and this value will go beyond just the project output. It should be about understanding what matters to the donors, or what the donor is looking out for, how it is aligning with their mission. So how are you aligning the work that you are doing to the mission and vision of the donor? It's also about communicating how you are doing your work and why you are doing it this way. So which approach are you using and why you are using this approach? It gives them a lot of understanding and also brings about a lot of transparency and trust building, which are very important for donor engagement. Please move on to the next slide. The next slide, please. Yeah. So when you're looking for a funding that is sustained, or you are building a sustainable funding, one of the key things that you have to do is that after scouting or engaging with your donor, and you implement the project and all that from the first stage, you go into building a stronger collaboration. And this has to do with co-creating the next steps together with your donor. Don't go back to your donor and say, I've done A and I have project B, fund it for me and let's move on. That way does not build a sustainable relationship, because a sustainable relationship will give you long-term funding. And from co-creation, you realize that there's an institutional embeddedness. So the activities that you are doing will be embedded into the actual work of the donor, and that helps you to get more funding. Please, the next slide. Yeah. So you also have to know that it's very strategic when you leave a lasting impact on your donor. And this has to do with highlighting the innovation that you have, making reference to already previously funded projects, also highlighting how your project contributes to the vision of the funder. So these things are very, very important. When you highlight or you share them, it leaves a lasting impression on your funder. Next slide. Yeah, so I just want to share. So this, I mean, all the things that I've mentioned are things that we as Gaio have done over the years with our Zero Waste Cities project that has won us the Esho Prize last year. So from the catalytic funding or the first funding that we received, we moved on to building a lasting relationship with the donors by carrying the beneficiaries and all those that we work on the Zero Waste project with to the donor in terms of the engagement, letting the donor know what we've done through the project from the beneficiaries or the stakeholders of the project themselves. So those engagements have fostered a deeper relationship that has helped us into getting multi-year funding for the projects. Next slide. So as I conclude, I just want to highlight how to sustain the funding. So one of the key things is to design scalable initiatives so that you don't get one-time funding. The second is, as I've already mentioned, have well-structured impact stories and regular updates that you share with your donor. And that also goes into the donor partner conversations that we have with the donor, and that will culminate into building trust and all that. So with all these things, you need to demonstrate your organizational strength, and that has to do with putting in place systems that helps you to get long-term funding, and that will mean your operational processes has to be in place. You need to have your skills, staff, and governance bodies in place. You need to have allies that you work with so that you don't work in silos, because no donor wants to work with an organization that works in silos. And then finally, you need to have a plan to help you, a strategy that will help you to go beyond your donor funding. And with these 4 key things in place, you position yourself to receive long-term funding. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard. I believe everybody is well satisfied with your presentation. It's very insightful. Thank you very much. We can see the uploads coming in from the comment section and the feedbacks. They are very amazing. Unfortunately, we'll not be able to read your questions out, because right after this session, there's going to be a Q&A session with all these donors, and we'll be carefully placed in rooms with all the donors we have here to engage them on any question at all that you want to ask. Mind you, these questions are not going to be scripted from our end. They are going to come from you, and it's going to be uninterrupted as possible so that you get to really ask the questions that have been daunting in your mind. So moving on, Richard, thank you very much once again. Moving on, I would like to introduce 2 of our amazing donors who will be joining the various breakout rooms to also have a session with all of us as experts or donors. First person is Alanya Dalla, and Alanya is a senior analyst on the climate team at the Children Investment Fund Foundation, where she leads the youth and climate portfolio and supports philanthropic partnerships. And prior to SIF, she worked with grassroots nonprofits advancing organizational development, focusing on climate migration, Refugee and Newcomer Programming, and Gender Equity Initiative. Alanya holds an MSc in International Policy from the London School of Economics and BA in Environmental and Gender Studies from the University of Victoria. Alanya, thank you very much for joining us, and we are glad to have you as a donor and to have you as one of our donors in the breakout rooms. And next is Hemavati Shekhar, and Shekhar is the founder of Enact Earth Foundation and also a council member for Loss and Damage Youth Grant Making Council. And Hemavati is a lawyer, researcher, and academician and advocate for equity and justice. He works at the intersection of climate change and law to offer greater representation to marginalized communities. Founded in 2021, her organization, Enact Earth Foundation, working on intergovernmental, intergenerational equity, gender justice, and participatory justice. She's a council member of Loss and Damage Youth Grant Making Council, which disburses funding to youth-driven initiative in the Global South. Richard and George have already been introduced and you've already engaged them. So now you will see that you have a list of experts who are literally funders that would have answers to majority of your questions. So for the structure of the breakout rooms, we'll have George Magwala in breakout room 1, and we'll have Richard Mate in breakout room 2, we'll have Alanya Dala in breakout room 3, and we'll have Hemavati Shekhar in breakout room 4. So please stay put as the team help automatically place us in our various breakout rooms.
Hi everyone, you should receive a request to automatically join the room. If you have any difficulties, do let me know. Everybody is assigned. Let's see, Sumi, do you have any difficulty joining one of the breakout groups? Hi, Isaac, seeing you've joined. We're currently in the breakout groups. We had the conversation with the donors, so we will assign you to one of the groups. Hope that is fine if you don't receive a request to join a group. Just checking, there is another UNFCCC here there. Just checking who's this. Yeah, just checking. There's another UNFCCC on here. What's this? Let me just check it. For those who have joined, well, who are currently here, we are currently in the breakout groups in the conversation with the donors. So if you have any difficulty joining any of the groups, I will add you. We have a few minutes, about 5 minutes left, but yes, I will add your coordinates with that. If that's all. So you will receive a request to join one of the breakout groups.
Oh boy, I feel this was so short. Hello, guys. Who agrees that
Hello,
this was
everyone.
very short?
Are we back yet? I mean, when you're enjoying the conversation, no time is enough. Yeah, I think we have full house now. We want to extend our sincerest gratitude to our donors for having an amazing. Now everybody is saying they were so short. I can't say for the other groups, but from group one, I think we had quite a wholesome conversation. And I remember George's last words. He says, "Remember that funders are also human." And I believe that that is one thing that we should cut across, that we should take as one of the major takeaways, aside the many things you picked. So our sincerest gratitude to George, to Alanya, to Hemavati, and then Richard Mate for facilitating the session, for giving us time to engage with you. People keep on saying it's too short, but I believe we can still engage our speakers going forward. Look for them in their socials and reach out to them and engage. Okay, so thank you very much. And I believe we all enjoyed the session, even though it wasn't too lengthy. So up next, we zoom into our final segments for the day. And to do us the honors, I would like to welcome back Ridi Duta to take it over from here. Ridi, please, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ernest. And I won't take too much time. I know I was jumping between all the breakout rooms. They were all the questions were so engaging. The speakers were fantastic. So on behalf of the Youth for Capacity team at the UN Climate Change Secretariat, we'd like to thank all the speakers for all their insights and their knowledge and their time, of course, for having these opportunities to have one-on-one time with the funder is a really important space that GAIO has kindly created for everyone joining the session. There are about 100 people on this call right now as well towards in, and we've been doing this boot camp for about 3 weeks, and it's been fantastic. We do not end here. We have all the discussions and spaces and opportunities to engage with peers and participants that you met, questions that were unanswered, resources that you want to look at again, presentations that you want to look at again. So I'm going to quickly drop the link once again to the platform and to the Q&A thread. Be sure to join them. Be sure to engage over there. With this, we've come to the end to the boot camp in the most substantive end of things. We had 3 sessions, and GAIO did a fantastic job. Specifically, a couple of shout outs to Ernest, Margaret, Paul, Richard, some of them that have been working on this throughout. A big shout out to them for making this happen. But next week, same time, we also have our virtual climate cafe. So while these 3 bootcamp sessions were where you heard on presentations, you had time with speakers and to interact through the discussions and on the chat. The virtual climate cafe is going to be a space for you to interact with your peers. So we've heard this multiple times that the breakout rooms are not enough. That's going to be the perfect space where we will be just sitting down in breakout rooms and really discussing them and unpacking everything that we've learned in the 3 sessions of the boot camp. And at the end of the boot camp, so once all of these, the next week's session is done as well, we will be launching a digest as well, which has the key lessons and outcomes from all the 3 sessions and everything that we've learned through the boot camp. All other information is, of course, there on our dashboard. But with that, one final time with the GAIO team, we would, of course, want to take a quick picture. So I would appreciate if everyone turn on their camera, put on their brightest smiles, and I'll take a couple of screenshots just so that we know we made it to like 2 hours and technically 6 hours total of this. So I'm going to just quickly take a couple of screenshots. I have 5 pages to scroll through, so just bear with me as I do that and smile through all of them. I think we have got it, and I'm sure my colleagues are also helping out with it. Let me just get page 3, and then last one, page 5, people, smile, big smiles. All right. With that, I wish you all the very best, and we will hopefully see you all next week on Tuesday as well for the Virtual Climate Cafe. And leave an emoji for Gaio for doing such a fantastic job with this bootcamp. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.